everybody, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another video. If you are new here, the if was way too powerful. Let's try that again. If you are new here, welcome. My name is Shannon and I have recently become cabin crew. I started my journey as cabin crew back in June of 2022, which is when I took my initial assessment, and then I started my training in October, and then finally got my wings in November and started flying in December. So it's been quite a process and I've only done about 2 months worth of flying, but now I'm finally finding my feet a bit more. I thought I would do a little cabin crew and slash traveling Q&A for you guys, because I know a lot of you guys have been asking me all sorts of questions. So I gave you guys on Instagram a little opportunity to ask lots of questions, and I've got quite a few questions, so thank you to those of you that asked the questions. I'm basically just going to go through every single one. I'm going to read them all and I am going to try and answer them as best as I can. Obviously, like I said, I am still new, but hopefully this gives you a nice little insight into what the beginning of being cabin crew looks like, and then hopefully further down the line I can do another Q&A and I'll be able to answer lots more questions. I'm going to try and do this in a quick fire way because now I'm cabin crew, guys. I have about this much time to edit a video. So to help myself out, we're going to try and do this without waffling, without stalling, and without pausing like I just did. So we're gonna give this a go. Quick fire Q&A. Let's crack on with the video. The first question I have is, how do you deal with being in different time zones? Do you get jet lagged? Okay, I've only done 2 long hauls as I'm filming this. As this goes up, I would have just got home from LA. I'm only the slightest bit excited, as you can tell. So I haven't actually got used to that yet. I've only been to America, so I haven't had the feel of going America, back, and then in the opposite direction. If I do that, I'll let you know how that goes, because I can imagine that's going to be quite hard. But I didn't do too badly when I went to Boston and San Jose. San Jose was obviously further out. I think there was 8 hours difference, whereas Boston was only 5. On the way out there, completely fine. I tried to like power through till the evening and then sleep all the way through the evening and wake up fresh as a daisy on the next day. So I've smashed that both times. However, coming home is a real struggle. I'm in and out of sleep like the whole next day. I really need to try and ace that. So yeah, jet lag's a real thing on the way home for me. I really seem to struggle with that. There's a few rules that cabin crew have come at me with. So like if they land before midday, they'll often try and give themselves like 4 hours sleep on the same day and then try and push through to the rest of the day. And if they land after midday, then they just sort of push through to the evening and then they get a good night's sleep that night. So maybe I'll apply that and see how that goes, because I've really struggled coming home. The other day I didn't sleep till like 5 AM because I think my body was like, are you in California? Are you in the UK? What are you doing right now? So if you guys have any tips for that, if you guys are already cabin crew and you know what you're doing with that, please give some tips on how to survive jet lag. That would be really helpful. Next question is, oh, it's not a question. Hold on, what does this say? Ah, someone just said, we're loving your travel vlogs. Look forward to lots more. That's very kind. Thank you very much. The next question is, do you have to wear your hair a certain way? And is it the same as everyone else? So I'm assuming it's different for each airline, but the airline that I'm with, it's purely on a safety basis. So for example, if there was a huge fire, fingers crossed no, but obviously we're trained for worst case scenario. So if there's a fire, we have like this thing called a smoke hood. So we would have to put that on. And if we had hair down, that would make that really difficult. If we had like a high ponytail, it wouldn't fit on, things like that. So it has to be off your face and lengthwise. If it reaches below the collar of your shirt, it's too long, so it has to go up. But if it's shorter than that, you can wear it down. There's certain things like certain clips you can't use and stuff. I never use clips because I have too much hair and they never work, so I don't actually know the guidelines on that. Colours, I think, is just natural hair colours that you couldn't have, like bright blue for example, but they've been a bit more lenient with that. Before they didn't allow like highlights and stuff like that. Now they allow that. I think you're allowed like balayage for example, but again, if you've got enough hair to have balayage, it's gonna be up in a bun anyway. You're not gonna tell. So next question, best advice for coping with being away from home for long periods of time? Just whenever you get a time, FaceTime people Keep yourself busy when you can't talk to people. So like, for example, when I went to California, that was really hard because as I was waking up, everyone else was going to bed back home. So I was really struggling to talk to people. So as soon as I was getting up in the morning, whilst I was like getting ready for the day, that's when I would like FaceTime my mum, check in with my dad. FaceTime's great. Like, technology is very helpful when you're far away from home. We shouldn't rely on it, but it's very helpful. So yeah, I would just do that. But again, if, for example, they're all asleep when you're awake and you can't get in touch with anyone, then just keep yourself busy. Don't get cabin fever. My friend Holly talks to me about cabin fever in the hotels all the time. And it's like, don't just think because you're feeling homesick, you should just stay in and feel sad and feel homesick. Go out and do something because you'll feel better for it. So yeah, keep yourself busy and try and keep in touch with everyone at home as best you can. How to overcome fear of flying. Oh God. I'm moving to America for 9 weeks in June and I'm nervous. That is the most exciting thing ever. Why are you moving to America for 9 weeks? That's exciting. Is that Camp America? Is that for a job? What is that? That's so fun. The first thing that comes into mind with this is, I know a lot of people get really scared when turbulence is a thing. I mean, even when I'm on my feet, like when the plane's still like this at the end of the day, so I kind of have to get used to it. But when there's a bit of turbulence for me, I'm like, oh, a bit of a shock to the system. I'm sure I'll get used to it. But has anyone ever seen that video on TikTok? I think it was a girl explaining the plane in like the jelly thing. I don't know how to explain it. I can't remember how she explains it, but she explains it really, really well. So if I remember, I will tag that in the description. If not, just look up on TikTok, turbulence jelly theory or something. She'll explain it way better than I can, but that explains turbulence and how it can't really affect the aircraft, basically. So look into that. The only other thing I can say is that the training that cabin crew go through is so extensive. It's terrifying for us because we learn all worst case scenarios. So basically, we are trained to help in every single way that we can in all of the worst case scenarios that you can think of. We have already gone through the process and worked out how to deal with the situation as best we can. So the people you have on board, they're not just there serving you your tea and your coffee and your drinks and your dinner and everything like that. They are doctors, they are therapists, they are firefighters, they are midwives. We literally learn everything. Anything that you could potentially suffer with on the ground, you can suffer with in the air, basically. And we also learn how to deal with that on minimum equipment because there's only a certain amount of equipment we can bring on board with us. But also, before we go on board, we have to check every single time we step on an aircraft that all of that equipment is there. So, if the aircraft is leaving, you know full well that all the equipment, medical equipment, firefighting equipment, all of that should be there, is there, because otherwise we wouldn't be leaving. And every single member of staff on there is trained to help you in everything. So you can count on them. Obviously, we are human, and the whole thing is a scary, scary process. Some of the things that could happen in the air is scary, but it's just the same as you getting in a car. And whether you're the passenger or the driver, you know, there's 1,000,001 things that could happen to you that day. So as terrifying of a thought that is, that's just the way it is. The only thing I can say to you is that you're in safe hands. So I hope that helps. And also, if you're scared of flying and you get on the plane, go and tell the crew member that you have a slight fear of flying, because we can go that extra mile to make sure you feel comfortable on that flight if we're aware that that's the case. You know, don't be scared, we got you. Next question, do you need experience? No, all the training is provided for you. As far as I'm aware, no, you do not need any previous experience. It wasn't a requirement when I was applying. Whether that changes or not, I do not know. Next question is, what's the pay like? Obviously won't go into detail because I still haven't even worked it out. The pay's alright. The pay's good. It's confusing. So you get like a basic rate. You also get paid for the flights that you do, whether it's short haul, long haul, depends on how long your trip is, if it is long haul. And you also get allowances. So when you're staying down route, so you've flown to Boston, for example, I was there for like 2 days. I got paid for those 2 days in allowances, which allowed me to spend that money on food, drink, stuff to get me through and survive for the 2 days. But I obviously don't get that until my payday. But yeah, that also depends on where you're going. So like, for example, America is expensive. Wow. So the allowances there are quite high, whereas South Africa, like places like Cape Town, are cheaper. So then your allowances won't be as high over there. So like the cost of living in that country will depend on what your allowances are, if that makes sense. It's good. Next question, is it long hours? Yeah. Yeah, it's long hours. We do have flights that are really, really long. I think the longest one we've got is a Santiago, and it's like 14 hours or something for a flight. And we do get bunk rest on that, so you will get time to have a break and have a sleep in the bunks. But that's a long time. So yeah, some really long hours, and it makes it feel longer when you're doing those time differences, because your brain can't keep up with where you are and what time it actually is, what day it is. So it feels long, and it does take a lot out of you. But you get the nice perks at the other end where you get to go and explore that place. So long hours, but worth it. Somebody asked, why do we have to open the blind for takeoff and landing? The reason is so that your eyes can adjust to the situation that is outside. So if worst comes to worst, we had to evacuate, we're then adjusted to that. For example, say all the blinds were down and it was bright sunshine outside and we have to evacuate. Everyone starts running off the plane, and then they're greeted with this beautiful bright sunlight, and you're like, oh my god, do you know what I mean? It just throws another spanner in the works when you're trying to evacuate an aircraft. So that's why the blinds have to be up. Why do we need to do the brace position? The only time we'd need to do the brace position is if we are doing a very difficult landing, basically, and the landing wasn't going to be as safe as it usually would be. The brace position is purely a position that protects all of your vital organs in the hope that you are good to go once we've landed. I feel like I'm saying this in the most like direct, upfront, brutal way, but that's the reason. Next question. This one says, who is your favourite person on your training course with the name starting with J? I wonder who asked that question. Josie in the Sky with Diamonds? Well, we know who it wasn't. Next question is it what you expected? Yes, no, and why? Examples in brackets. Oh, I don't really know what I was expecting, to be honest. My friend Holly flies already, and she's flown for a lot longer than me. And I remember asking her questions like, so once we're in the air, we've done the service, I'm on second break, so I haven't gone to the bunks. What do I do? And she goes, have some food. And I was like, okay. So like, there's some days where you just think, is this work? And it's those moments where you're like, this is not what I expected. Throughout training anyway, everything is so full on. You almost think, what am I going into here? Like, what have I even got myself in for? So you do really expect it to be very full on when you get online. Majority of the time, that's not the case. Sometimes, unfortunately, it can be really full on and you really do earn your money. Holly uses the phrase, my job is my hobby. And sometimes you forget that you're working. Like this weekend, I'm going to LA. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, oh, packing for LA, I'm going on holiday. And I almost forget I've got to work the trip out there and then work it back. So that's weird. I didn't expect the training to be quite as intense as it was. And I also didn't expect to make as many friends as I did. I didn't expect to fall in love with literally like 20 other people. With the travelling side of it, that part's not what I expected. I knew I was going to be able to travel the world with this job, which I'm very lucky to do. I expected it to feel more comfortable than what it has been, and I have really enjoyed myself, but I expected myself to be really confident and quite fine to do that, and that's not the way it went the first time, so that was a bit unexpected, but we're getting in the swing of it now. We'll be fine. What else? The whole idea of bunk rest, I didn't realise that we would have time to sleep on the plane. So yeah, a lot of it is not what I expected at all. Next question, hardest part of training. I would probably just say the exams overall were quite daunting, but all exams are. I've never really been a lover of exams. Who is? As much as like the firefighting and the evacuation drills and everything were quite tough, they weren't as bad as I thought they were going to be. The firefighting part was probably harder for me. The other bit that was really hard was probably the medical side of things. I think because it's all taught to you in a very condensed period of time. Like, I think it was over about 2 or 3 days, and you learn everything. Like a whole first aid course, from literally just cuts and bruises to CPR, to helping somebody give birth, to strokes, to shock, diabetes, allergic reactions, everything. And I think because it is really crammed in and you have to try and remember all of it. And I think that the hardest part is that there's so many things that have such similar symptoms, and you've got to try and work out which one have they got. That's the thing that scares me the most, is that I could potentially have a medical on board. That's the scariest thing for me. So I would say that was the hardest part. Next question, if you could choose any destination, where would you fly to? It changes every month. I already know what I'm going to bid for April, but in general, I would probably say Orlando, purely because you always want what you can't have, and we don't fly from Heathrow to Orlando anymore, so I know I can't have that one. And B, I don't even need to explain to you the reason I want to go to Orlando, because you already know it. I'm a Disney geek. 2 more questions. Sorry. What is it like working with new people every time you go to work? Yeah, that's, to be fair, going back to the question about things being unexpected, that's another thing I thought was probably going to be harder than it is. But yeah, you don't ever really think about this part, is that every time you do a flight, you're with someone completely different, and it's very rare that you fly with the same person that you've flown with before. And if you do that, it's usually been years and years and years ago, and you don't even remember. The amount of times I'm with crew and they go, have we flown together before? And the other person will be like, yeah, I think we have. But they still don't remember where the flight was going to. They don't remember who else was there, because it was years ago. Before you have a flight, you always go into a little briefing room where you meet your manager and the rest of your crew for that flight, and you talk through like a whole list of things that you need to go through before the flight. And every time I walk in there, it feels very, very scary, very nerve-wracking, very overwhelming, because you don't know anyone in that room. But it's nice though, because you always end up asking the question of where they're from, how long they've been flying for, where's their favourite destination. I love finding things out like that about people. And then they always give you like tips for somewhere to go, or like the best thing they've ever done, and you take it all on board, and then everything's going into this little tick list, like a little bucket list of things I want to do on all these flights. So I actually really enjoy meeting new people every day, but the initial part of it is very scary. Another question is, what are the main reasons for delays? Well, there are no main reasons for delays. I've had so many recently on short haul, it's ridiculous. The delay is usually from a backlog of things that all add up. So for example, I was delayed about 3 hours the other day, and that was because earlier flights had been cancelled due to the fog. So the fog started it off, which then meant that because of that initial cancellation, delay, whatever it was, it meant that the flight crew we were meant to have on our flight was back to Heathrow late. So we had to wait about an hour for them. So we waited for them, they got on board, everybody else got on board, we were ready to go, but there was a medical emergency. And we had to decide whether this person was fit to fly or not. So then we had to make that decision, and the people that are on that plane are because they want to be somewhere, right? So they're often going to fight their corner because they want to be on that plane. So that interaction went back and forth for about 2 hours until it was resolved, and then we finally went. So then that aircraft that was then being used to come back, we were then late on the way back. So there's that list of delays. Another reason we were slightly delayed the other day was because the jetty broke down, and the jetty is that little tunnel that you walk through to get onto the plane. That had broken down like meters away from the aircraft. The aircraft can't obviously taxi out until the jetty is a certain amount of feet away, or however far, I don't actually know, but you can't go anywhere until that's off and out of the way for safety reasons. So we had to wait for that. Other reasons like staff. There was a time a couple of weeks ago where we didn't have any ground staff to sort the cargo out, so we were waiting for that. There is no main reason for delays, they just happen, and they happen a lot, which obviously makes the hours longer. So going back to that question about long hours, delays are a real issue, and that really drags out our time, so that's difficult. But yeah, they happen a lot, and there is no main reason for them. It's just, it could be, honestly, could be anything. Let's just check if we've got any more questions. Oh, what is that? Okay, someone's just sending me weird links to something. I'm gonna ignore that. Oh wow, we've got a few more now. Josie's just put in there immediately, I'm waiting for your response to my question. She's so funny. You guys are trying to wind me up now, I swear. Somebody's asked me, why can't planes go backwards? Someone's put aeroplane or airplane and it's spelled differently. Honestly. Right, a real question. Thank you, Paige. Have you dealt with people being sick yet? No, I haven't dealt with that yet. I'm nervous for when I do. Another question. What has been your best flight so far? Best flight, the actual flight process, not the actual trip. To be fair, the one I did yesterday was really lovely. We had just a Madrid there and back, but the crew I had were beautiful, lovely, lovely people. And it was nice and easy, lovely passengers. We had a lovely family on the way out there at the back. They were just beautiful human beings. So yesterday was actually a really nice flight. Both of my long haul flights have been nice because I've learnt so much. But my supernumerary flight was really nice. Supernumerary means first flight. I didn't know that before I started. So yeah, for my supernumerary flight, had lovely crew again, and obviously I got to sit in the cockpit. The London skyline is just beautiful. Stunning. There's nothing like it. Lots of favourites there. Couldn't pick one. Sorry. Stop sending me links. Who is this person right now? I don't know what's going on. Instagram's a terrifying place sometimes. Okay, that is all of my questions. So thank you to those of you that asked all the questions. That was very kind. Without you guys, it would not have been a video. So thank you for participating in that. And I hope this has been helpful. Probably not too helpful, as I am still a newbie. But I wanted to give a little insight into somebody who is new as to what the job is like and what it entails. So I hope that's been eye-opening. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to ask them in the comments down below or chat to me over on Instagram. I'm happy to answer them in another Q&A, or I can just reply to your comment, whichever way you prefer. Or if you have any specific questions regarding maybe like the training process or the whole process from like assessment to getting my wings, graduating and becoming cabin crew. It's a whole process going on there. So if you have any questions regarding that, I can do a full video on that if you need. But yeah, just let me know. But for now, I'm gonna love you and leave you. So thank you very much for your questions. Thank you very much for watching this video. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.